Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the Preacher's Husband. Today, we're talking about Exodus chapter 13, 14, and 15. And today, right off the bat, the Lord speaks to Moses, and he says basically to consecrate every firstborn male to me, the firstborn from every womb among the Israelites, both man and domestic animal, it is mine. Now, this was not some sort of demand that to be made as a sacrifice, but this was a demand basically made to be a remembrance or a symbolic remembrance of what God is doing with the Israelites and what he is about to do. So this is basically kind of like we memorialize an event through Memorial Day, or like today is July the 4th. And we celebrate our Independence Day. That's very much what he's trying to do here. He's setting forth that these events will be remembered forever, and that God will always be remembered both by the Egyptians and by the Israelites for what he's about to do. So, they talk about the ceremonies that are going to happen and how to celebrate this time. And then Pharaoh lets the people go. So, when Pharaoh let the people go, they took off, and it was late, and that's why God had told them to be prepared to go. So here we are in chapter 13, and we're going to talk about the route of the Exodus. Which way did they go? Where did they go when God turned them loose? Well, one of the most important events that happened in this Exodus, or one of the most miraculous events, is the parting of the Red Sea. And what we see here is a depiction of that. But where was the Red Sea? In the actual original writings, the Red Sea was not really the Red Sea, it was the Reed Sea. It was, over time, the translation of the Reed Sea, which is the original wording, was translated into red. For some reason, over time, Reed Sea became Red Sea. So what we see as the Red Sea today was not actually the Red Sea then. Well, it was, but what it's referring to is not the Red Sea exactly. It's a sea of reeds is how it was translated, the Sea of Reeds. And there actually is a Sea of Reeds today, but it's quite a bit north of the Red Sea. And a lot of scholars, biblical scholars, believe that that's where Moses crossed, not actually in the Red Sea itself, but actually a Sea of Reeds. So we're going to look at that. And chapter 13, verse 17, when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them along the road to the land of the Philistines. Now, this was a northern road, and I'm going to show you a map of this. Essentially, that northern road is that northern blue line or route that some people feel that maybe they took. What happens if you look close to that blue line at the top, the blue route, that would take them through the land of the Philistines, and those were the enemies. And God basically says the people will change their mind and return to Egypt if they had to face war immediately after just being released from slavery. So God said, I'm not going to lead you down the road. Instead, I'm going to through the land of the Philistines. Instead, I'm going to lead you toward the Sea of Reeds toward the Red Sea along the road of the wilderness, is what it says here. Now, of course, that was translated Sea of Reeds. But they do take out and they start south. You see the green and the red and the blue. All three are going the right direction when they go. And then in verse 20, it said they set out from Succoth, and they camped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. I'm going to throw another map up here for you. I'll give you a little zoomed in version. So they go down to Succoth, and then they go to Etham, and that's where they camp out. And then in chapter 14, the Lord tells the Israelites to turn back and camp in front of Pi-hahiroth between Migdol and the sea. You must camp in front of Baal-zephon, facing it by the sea. So here they are. They're going all the way up. And so instead of continuing southward, they're going to turn and go back north towards the Reed Sea, or the Sea of Reeds, which is mentioned here. And you can see the cities on the map there, Baal-zephon and Pi-hahiroth. And this is where they would have had their backs at the end of that blue line there. That's where they would have been camping at that point. And then you see the red line of the Egyptians. That's when the Egyptians start taking off. Now you see all these other lines of the routes that they could have possibly taken, and there was actually down on the bottom right hand corner, a lot of scholars say that's where they crossed the Red Sea, but I just don't see how they would have had enough time to travel that much distance to get that far southeast to that portion of the Red Sea where they said, some scholars say that's where it happened. And also there's a bit of question as to where this Etham was, because this shows Etham above the Bitter Lakes. Some maps show Etham way down in the Sinai Peninsula, kind of towards where the traditional Mount Sinai was. Currently, Mount Sinai is to the east of that Gulf of Aqaba, whatever it says there. But the traditional Mount Sinai was right there, smack dab in the southern middle portion of the Sinai Peninsula. So what I'm assuming is this is what happens. And the Reed Sea up here near the Mediterranean Sea is where the parting of the waters happened. So the Egyptians come, and there they are. They are backed up against this wall, and everybody's crying. Everybody's crying. Why have you done this for us? We're all going to die. And the Lord says to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to break camp. As for you, lift up your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea, and divide it, so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. So they do that. They run through, and then after they run through, of course, the sea closes behind them, swallowing up all of the Egyptians that are chasing them down from behind. And then in chapter 15, we get to Israel's song. And it says, Then Moses and the Israelites sang the song to the Lord, and they said, and then they sang this song. The first four lines of this song is, I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. He has thrown the horse and its rider into the sea. That's the first verse of the song. There are 18 verses of this song. Now, what really stood out to me was, we get to verse 20. It says, Then the prophetess Miriam, Aaron's sister, took a tambourine in her hand, or a timbal, or whatever they call it. It's not really a tambourine. It's a type of instrument that looks like a tambourine. It sounds similar to a tambourine. And all the women came out following her with tambourines and dancing. Miriam sang to them, Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. He has thrown the horse and its rider into the sea. Now, a couple of things about Miriam. This is Aaron and Moses' sister. Now, there was a previous reference to her in the story of Moses. When Moses is put into the basket, into the water, we see the sister, as she is called then. That is actually Miriam. Most scholars believe that was Miriam. And now here is Miriam again, but called by name in Exodus. Miriam has an exciting story behind her. And I'm going to do a different series called Characters of the Bible. And Miriam's going to be one of my first characters that I'm going to summarize. And I'm going to do a study based on biblical characters coming up soon. So be looking for that as we continue on through the Bible in 1 year. So the next thing about Miriam is this is the first example that I'm aware of a woman leading people in worship. Now, even though it says here specifically that it was the other women, she was leading the other women in a worship song. This is one of the first examples of a woman leading others in worship. And this was pre-Jesus time. This was Old Testament. Women were in leadership positions. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about Miriam as a biblical character. I hope this has touched you. Tomorrow, we're going to be going through Exodus chapter 16, 17, and 18. I hope y'all guys have a happy and wonderful 4th of July holiday. And as the slaves are now free from Egypt, we are also celebrating our freedom in the United States here. Blessings. Hit the like button, the subscribe button, and of course click the little jingle bell so you can get notified the next time I upload a video. And I will see you tomorrow as we continue on with the Exodus.